Hey, so two threads to follow. I'm going to return to water distribution, the movement of water on two threads that I'll follow in finishing this up before heading off to garden watering, which is sort of more water distribution. The world of pressure and how it affects water, particularly pressure imbalances affect it. And the other thread to follow is water as it moves through a plumbing system. Can we understand it? And the answer, well, yes. And we can understand it using energy. So those are the two directions. The first direction, going back to water and pressure and all that, one of the questions that came in toward the end of last time and I didn't respond to is how does surface area come into play with the water bottle example? And this thank you for the questions. It helps me cover things that are valuable to you all. There is a whole path to follow from this. The idea was the following, that right now the pressure inside this bottle is essentially atmospheric pressure. And I use that term casually, familiarly. Atmospheric pressure is this sort of ambient pressure we're in right now, give or take a little bit. That's atmospheric pressure. 2 atmospheres is twice that pressure, 3 atmospheres, 3 times that pressure. Okay, so having said that, the pressure inside this bottle is pretty much atmospheric pressure. The pretty much comes in because there is a pressure gradient in it, the usual gravitational one. What can I do? And to really be sure it's essentially atmospheric pressure, I gotta make sure it's open. So I just open the top. I'll put the top back on. It's back at atmospheric still. And if I push in on this surface of the bottle, which is flexible and basically is just a way of keeping the water under control, well, I push on it. So the surface isn't very important, so much as that I push on it, the water, because it's incompressible, because it can't go anywhere, and it's just trapped there, it's going to push back. So if I start squeezing in, I'll use 2 fingers to do this, just to balance, make sure the cap stays on, it's leaky a little bit, not the point. If I push in fact, I'm pressurizing the water. How's that? Nah, it's dripping. I'm pressurizing the water because you see no acceleration of the bottle, the skin of the bottle. Evidently, the forces are all evenly matched. There's net force 0 on everything. And that means that even though I'm pushing in on the surface of the bottle, something's pushing back. And this something is water. And it pushes back by way of pressure. So it's exerting a pressure on the surface that matters, which is somewhere around my fingers. It's pushing with a pressure on that surface, and pressure times surface area gives you a force. So it's managing to match my force 1-to-1 perfectly. And that fact that I'm pressurizing it means that when I pull the top off, of course, it sprays out because it goes from, now the pressure inside the bottle is well above atmospheric, and it accelerates out, off it goes. But where I want to dwell on is, in response to that question, is how does surface area matter in this? For example, if I exert a certain force on the entire bottle, is that the same as exerting a certain force on a teeny part of the bottle? And the answer to that is actually no. It's a little messed up because of the bottle has flexible surfaces and changes the story. But if I imagined, instead of a bottle, I had a tube with 2 plungers at the end, or just 1 plunger at the end, just this syringe, there, we got it. If I trap water in here, which I could do, and I push down on this, I will pressurize the water inside the trapped area. And how much will I pressurize it? Well, whatever force I'm exerting on this piston has to be matched by a force up from the water. And the water builds pressure, and it's got a little surface to work on. That surface, the rubber stop, the rubber seal. So it pushes back, and if I put 100 newtons of force on this, it's got to make sure that it develops 100 newtons of force on that surface. And since it's not a very big surface, it's got to make a pretty good pressure. So maybe it will develop 100 newtons per plunger area of pressure. It's a weird unit, but it's okay. And if I push with 1,000 newtons, it'll develop 1,000 newtons per surface area. Okay? So I can adjust the pressure by how hard I push. If the plunger were bigger, had more surface area, the pressure wouldn't have to get as high, because now the fluid we push on this great big surface, it can make 100 newtons of force with a gentle pressure. So the smaller the plunger is, the bigger the pressure that has to develop inside the trapped volume to match my push. That's where I'm trying to go with this. And this is the basis of all of hydraulics. So you've heard of hydraulic this, that, and the other thing, hydraulic machines, hydraulic lifts. When you go have your car repaired, how do they lift the car up? Well, almost certainly they're using hydraulic systems. What a hydraulic system does is it has essentially two of these piston arrangements, plungers and a cylinder. The one that you or some little machine works with is a little piston cylinder. When I push down on this with a force I can summon, I don't know, 100 newtons I can certainly do. That's a pretty good push, but not outrageous. The fluid in here will pressurize, assuming it can't escape. It will develop a pressure to match me and keep the piston essentially from moving. It tries to keep the piston at equilibrium. And so it will develop let's say that is let me do it in American units. I'm going to use 100 pounds of force on 1 square inch. Is that okay? It is what it is. So the fluid will develop 100 pounds per square inch of pressure to push back on me and balance me away. This, incidentally, is on top of the ambient atmospheric pressure. There's 1 atmosphere of pressure on this even without me involved. So there'll be an extra 1 unit of atmospheric pressure inside without me involved also. We can just sort of set those two aside. They never do anything interesting. It's just the background. It's a nuisance that makes my life trying to explain it complicated, so I'm going to set it aside. So you can see, I put 100 pounds of force on this, we get 100 pounds per square inch of pressure in there. Well, if we have another piston that's this big around with a great big plunger on it, how much force do we have to put on the top of that plunger to keep it from moving, to keep it from at equilibrium? Well, now the fluid below it is pressurized at 100 pounds per square inch. Every square inch of that gigantic plunger is going to experience 100 pounds of force. And it's big. That might be 10,000 pounds of force up from the fluid. To balance it, we have to push down with 10,000 pounds of force on the top of the big, gigantic plunger. Well, you can put a car on top of that plunger, and the car will just sit there because it doesn't weigh that much. Actually, it'll lose. It won't push hard enough. The hydraulic pressure will actually lift the car that way. And that's the basis behind a hydraulic system in general. This is a hydraulic jack for lifting a car or something like a car, but it's got this is the hydraulic part down here. This is just bolted there for fun and games because now we can put a can in there or pretty much anything. We used to sacrifice old calculators that people never claimed. Here's the idea. I am going to put a pretty significant force on a tiny plunger pushing against a liquid, not water, but a hydraulic fluid. Same idea. And the fluid will pressurize and push back like, okay, you're pushing on me with I'll probably exert 1,000 pounds of force on it. I've got a lever here. Remember how levers work? So I'm going to put about 1,000 pounds of force down on that. It's going to push back with 1,000 pounds of force. How is the fluid going to summon up 1,000 pounds of force? Well, it's acting on a very small surface, so it has to develop a really big pressure to push up with 1,000 pounds of force on that little teeny piston. It'll fight me, but at the same time, that same fluid is exposed to a great big piston over here with a big cylinder, and that same enormous pressure will push up on a big surface there, where it will exert a ginormous force, so big that it can crush this can with essentially no problem. It doesn't even pause there, right? So you'll notice that I'm doing a lot of motion here. I'm moving, I'm pumping fluid. There is some movement of fluid, which makes the story a little more complicated, but for all practical purposes, the fluid it's not moving much. So I am pressurizing it by exerting a big force on a little teeny piston, and that in turn produces a tremendous force on a big piston connected to it. I am doing the work of crushing the can in a circuitous way. I'm doing the work by pumping fluid at pressure. Remember, the pressure in a fluid times its delivery pressure. The pressure in a fluid times the volume you deliver is the work you do. And so I'm doing work a little teeny bit at a time because I'm using a big pressure but a little teeny volume delivered. And it's showing up here as work crushing the can. I did not do justice to that description, but the work energy went through the system, and it's all handled properly. It works out nicely. The main thing I wanted to make sure you understand is how hydraulic jacks and hydraulic lifts and all the big machines that you see around grounds where they have the shiny metal cylinders or rods moving in and out of larger cylinders. You know, what's moving all that stuff around? It's hydraulic fluid moving around. And they're using this idea that you can pressurize the fluid using a little plunger moving, doing a lot of movement, and have it exert tremendous forces on big plungers immersed in the same pressurized fluid. You okay with that? Questions about that? I didn't get it as clean as I'd like, but that's the idea. So, other pressure-related things that are sort of worth noting. Water seeks its level. What's this about? Water that's up high has gravitational potential energy, and we'll come more to that in a minute. And I told you way back that objects or things accelerate in the direction that reduces their total potential energy as quickly as possible. That's universally true, even if you can't find the forces or the torques or whatever, or the pressures that cause it to happen. It shows up anyway. So if you put water into a container and expect the water to pile up on one side of the container, it doesn't happen. The water settles out and seeks its level. That is, it goes to the same height all across the container. Why? Because if you take the water that was down low on one side of the container and sort of lift it up and stack it on the other side. If I took this aquarium and I lifted all the water on the left side, pulled it out and stacked it on the right side, I would have done work lifting it up. It's now higher than before. It has more gravitational potential energy than it had. It doesn't like this. It wants to get rid of that gravitational potential energy, and it will do that by accelerating and ultimately flowing to fill in the empty spot. So you take this all for granted. You fill a sink or a bathtub or a swimming pool with water, and it always spreads out uniformly because that's the lowest potential energy it can have. It has to do that. And just to sort of illustrate that, these are called Pascal's vases. Pascal, again, the same philosopher, scientist, you know probably from philosophy class too, but anyhow, if I fill these containers, and they share a common bottom, that is, they're connected at the bottom inside the black container. If I fill one of them, as it fills up, the others will fill too. They have to in order to minimize the total potential energy. They all fill up, and they all fill up to the same level no matter what wacky shape you've got in the container. This is just a fancy version of filling an aquarium. You can pour all the water you like on the left side. It's going to end up on the right side as well. Unavoidable. Minimizing energy. Potential energy. Is that okay? Things that are more valuable. And these, before I go to the, I want to talk about a siphon, and I want to talk about basically water cooler. Someone asked me a question basically about how do those self-sustaining PET water bowls work? And I'm guessing, or I'm hoping that you're referring to basically a water cooler, where you get a big tank of water that constantly doles out or routinely doles out water to fill a little area for the pets to drink, or for somebody to get a drink themselves. Those all work the same way, assuming we're talking about the same thing. So here's an example of one. I've got a dish of water at the bottom, and I've got a rigid container immersed, mostly full of water, immersed with its neck under the water. So this is if you've ever put in one of those big 5-gallon tanks of water into a water cooler, that's what you're doing. You're flipping it over, it leaks like crazy for a second, then you dump it in, and the neck of the bottle is now beneath the water in the water cooler, and everything sits there. And whenever someone takes a drink and the water level descends a little bit and allows a bubble of air to go into the mouth of this inverted bottle, the bubble goes in and more water comes out. So there's basically an exchange of air for water inside the water cooler. How is this working? It's using some of the same concepts that I did last time when I talked about, in response again to another question. Someone asked, what's life like in a building? Doesn't the roof of the building support the column of air overhead? And I told you that if the building is sealed, that is true. The building itself then begins to support the column of air overhead the building, and you can do anything you like inside the building. You can have air pressure, no air pressure, you can fill it with water, you can do whatever you like. But as soon as you open up a window, air is going to move from high pressure to low pressure and spoil this. Whatever you've done inside, it's going to change. So that's what's going on here. This is a sealed environment, like a building, and the column of air going to the top of the atmosphere is being supported by the bottom of that inverted bottle. And what's happening under that bottom, anything goes. And actually what's going on right now is the pressure inside there is a little below atmospheric pressure. How do I know that? Because this portion of water here is being held up by something. It's got net force 0 right now, despite having quite a bit of weight. So something's pushing it up. And the something that's pushing it up is a pressure imbalance between atmospheric pressure, essentially here at the bottom in that container of water, the dish of water, and less than atmospheric inside the sealed glass container. The pressure there is less than atmospheric. Not a whole lot less, but enough that there's pressure below that's higher than the pressure above. There's a net push up on the water in that bottle. And it will just sit there all day until something spoils the low pressure on top. What's a something? Let some air into it. So if I let some air in, here goes some air. That air went in, the pressure up at the top suddenly increased, and now there wasn't as much force lifting the water, and so it descended. And that's how the water cooler idea works. Every time the water in the dish drops below a certain level, a bubble goes in, spoils the low pressure in the top of the container, and removes some of the supporting force on the column of water in the storage bottle, and lets some come out. And it just keeps on doing it endlessly until basically you run out of water in the storage bottle. You okay? Or questions about that idea? So watch the water cooler, the bubbling effect. Why is it bubbling? When you take some water from it, you're letting the air bubbles go in and let the column of water descend. And actually, this is very closely related to how a straw works, which I never did, and I usually do. How does a straw work when you drink water with a straw? You're not attracting the water. Sad but true, you're just not that important, okay? So the water doesn't go towards your mouth because it's you. You make it go up there because you remove air from within the straw, thereby lowering the pressure inside the straw. And now there's a pressure imbalance between the water at the bottom of the straw and the top of the straw. You've made it low, it's atmospheric-ish at the bottom. That pushes up. And so the water is being lifted towards your mouth by the atmospheric pressure winning over less than atmospheric pressure. Is that okay? Now, long ago, the floor of this room was several feet lower than it is now. They put all kinds of stuff under here. But back in the day, the distance between the floor, the old floor, and the catwalk was larger. It was large enough that if you imagine somebody up there trying to drink through a long straw, it was very hard to drink through a long straw. And here's why. Because as the column of water gets taller and taller, you draw the air out with your mouth, okay? Somebody's up there. Okay, they make low pressure inside the straw, and all the gas rules they apply. The column of water gets heavier and heavier. You need a bigger and bigger pressure difference to support that column of water. And the column of water, by the time it got to be about 20 feet tall, which is what we sort of could get, the weight of that column of water was about all you could do. It required that the pressure inside the straw be about a third of atmospheric or less. And it was hard work. And people would basically either get exhausted or lose or get a hickey on their tongue. Okay? So you couldn't do it. Once they raise the roof here, you can do it. So it's kind of boring. Someone goes up there and they can, they're looking like they're a little bit challenged, but not, it's not as fun. But the idea is this, though. If you try to drink through a straw that's 80 feet long, you go on the balcony of some tall building and you try to drink through that long straw, you can't do it. Why not? Because even if you draw complete vacuum inside that straw, which is something you're going to be hard-pressed to do, that is no air molecules left at all. You've pulled them all out, or you removed them. The atmospheric pressure can only support, well, like the atmospheric pressure down here, we know what it can support. It can support the column of air all the way to the top of the atmosphere, or, I told you last time, you get 1 atmosphere's worth of pressure by going swimming 10 meters down below the surface of the water. So the weight of a column of water 10 meters tall is equivalent to the weight of the atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere. They have the same weight. So if I had a column of air in a box going all the way to the top of the atmosphere, and if I had a column over here, get rid of all the air, but you have a column of water that's 10 meters tall, they would weigh the same amount on each, if the boxes were identical in surface area. I'm not saying that very well either. But water is so much more dense, it weighs so much more per volume, that atmospheric pressure can only support a column of water 10 meters tall, a little over 30 feet. So going back to the straw situation, atmospheric pressure at the bottom of the straw in the open container of, you can pretend it's water, but on the weekend it might not be water. And you're up here sucking away on it 80 feet over. You make full vacuum in that straw, but the column as it's going up, it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And no matter what the shape of the straw is, this Pascal's principle stuff, the shape doesn't matter. It's that pressure imbalance can only lift a certain height of column of water, and you only get about 33 feet, 35 feet, something like that, and then you're just out of luck. So, first, the bad news, just in general, is you can't steal someone's beverage with a straw that's more than about 35 feet. It will not come to your mouth, okay? A more significant application is many of you have pumps, wells at home. Some people are on we're on county water, but there are many people around Charlottesville and Albemarle who are on wells. And if you make a well that is based at the surface of the ground and that sees water down there 80 feet below in a hole and tries to put a straw down there and suck the water up, you can't do it. So wells can't have their pumps at the top trying to draw the water up by letting atmospheric pressure lift it, unless it's a very shallow well. So a well that's only 10 feet deep, yeah, you can do this. But if it's 100 feet down to the water table, you have to go down there and push the water up. You can't bring it up with a straw or anything like a straw. And so that's why most wells have submersible pumps that actually go down into the well, which is, it's a big complication. You got to actually put an electrical device in the water 100 feet down. What a pain in the neck. But there's just no alternative. If you want to get the water up there, you got to go down and push. All right? Let me now, I'll talk about a siphon in a minute, but let me follow another thread. So that's the thread of pressure and how pressure imbalances push on water and make things, control where the water is. I haven't had the water do much moving. Now, let me go back to having the water move. And I at the end of last time, I did this in a flurry. I started playing with the water here in a container. And the idea behind this container and playing with water is that when water begins to move, it becomes very interesting to watch its energy. So the focus shifts from worrying about pressure and accelerations to where's the water's energy and how does that affect how it moves. And water can have three ways in which it can have energy. Two of them are essentially obvious at this point, hopefully in the semester. One is gravitational potential energy. If you lift the water up, it's going to have energy just by virtue of gravity, energy stored in the forces of gravity. It can also have kinetic energy, like anything else. If it's moving, it's got energy associated with that motion. The third form is a little bit of a more complicated thing, pressure potential energy. It isn't truly a potential energy, as in the water doesn't own the energy and have it. It's actually in the promise of the water company or some other system to replace the water if you use it. So the energy actually is not literally in the water, but it's good enough. And so for all practical purposes, we'll deal with pressure potential energy as though it's just a normal, ordinary potential energy. And the water then can convert its energy from one form to the other. And in general, that can be complicated, but there are certain situations in which it's very simple. And the simple situation in which we can watch the water or any fluid convert its energy from one form to the other is what's known as steady state flow. So what's steady state flow? That means that envision a plumbing system of some sort. So some way in which water is going to be moved from here to there. It's a plumbing system in which you can't see the passage of time. That means if you take a photograph of it and a video of it, they look the same. So what does that mean? It means you're not allowed to have the plumbing move. Nobody's in there paddling the water, doing work on it, no pumps. And the water isn't allowed to start and stop. It has to go through the system. And actually, there's no such thing as true steady state flow where there's, if you go too far off screen over here, you realize, oh, somebody's actually starting the water over here. And if you go too far off screen on this side, you realize, oh, somebody's collecting it. But in the middle, where life is simple, nothing seems to be moving. And this is the state of affairs when, for example, you open the faucet in your bathroom. And between somewhere entering your house and that faucet, as the water goes into the sink, everything is just steady and simple. And nobody's moving your pipes up and down. Nobody's in there pumping. It's all just smooth. So in that world of steady state flow, and in a smoothly flowing river, it comes into view, it goes out of view. If you can't see the passage of time, steady state flow. So right now, it's steady state, nothing flow, boring. But if I bring this up, and right now it's not steady state flow, you can see things moving. And now, nothing's going. And from about here on, the level of water is going to come down. That's a no-no. That's violating steady state flow. But from about here, or maybe here for sure, from here to, well, in fact, to about there, it's steady state flow. We can quibble about whether the water droplets are important or not. But let me let it go, and I can start talking. Can I get this to come back here? So yeah, this is break. I'll get all wet here eventually. So it's pretty much steady state flow somewhere through here. The water is taking its gravitational potential energy, it's turning it into pressure potential energy, maximum pressure potential energy. It's going a little bit back to gravitational, then it goes through a nozzle and becomes kinetic, and then it goes up here to gravitational again, and then back down to kinetic, and now we lost steady state flow. But while it was going, the water is just shifting from one form to the other. Incidentally, this is in a somewhat idealized situation. Not only is nothing allowed to move in the plumbing, but we're assuming water flows perfectly, which it doesn't quite. You know that water's got a little bit of a syrupiness to it, what's known as viscosity. Honey has a lot, water has a little, but enough to be a nuisance in some context. But right now I'm setting aside that nuisance. In this world of water flowing perfectly in a steady environment, you can watch the energy change form from one to the other. all right? And what does that mean for your real life? When water goes from low down to up high through a pipe of constant diameter, as just the water is being lifted up, it's going to be losing pressure, potential energy, and gaining gravitational. So as you deliver water to a skyscraper through a pipe, and you send it up and up and up, as it goes up, its gravitational potential energy is going up, its pressure is going down. So far, so good? So I can then ask you this question. I got to drag out the toys, okay? Water enters your home plumbing at around ground level. Where will you get the strongest spray from a shower? And I can add that when you send pressurized water through a nozzle, so it loses pressure going out. On the other side of the nozzle is open air, so its pressure is plummeting. It's losing pressure potential energy. It gains kinetic energy. And so that, the strongest spray is where the pressure was highest, right before the nozzle. And I'll come back to that. But you okay with this question? Where do you get the best spray? Oops, get out of here. I'll give you to the 30-second point. Three, 2, 1, 0. The basement it is. Because in the basement, most of the energy, in the water's energy, prior to going through the nozzle, is in the form of pressure potential energy. I'm just thinking, I can do this, right? I can refill this guy and simulate that. So here's the water delivery system. And actually, this is equivalent to filling up, plan ahead, filling a water tower. Why are there water towers? Water towers are energy storage devices, along with water storage devices. But you put it up high, wow, it's packed full of energy. It can do stuff now. For example, make a nice shower. And let me unconnect this. So this is, here's the shower in the attic. Gosh, the water pressures here is terrible. Just totally sucks, okay? And here, now you go down to the basement. And the interesting thing is the water sprays to the same height. So this is, if you're fighting fires and you want to fight a fire up here, you can't do it. You bring the nozzle higher, you don't win because the water doesn't have enough energy per drop to get there. I can't do it. I'll just carry the hose up higher. No. You got the idea? How do I stop this? I'll bet the English professors don't come out all soaking wet. All right. So this explains why the pressures in your house, they will vary. The pressures in tall buildings vary a lot. In fact, you cannot. If you're building a building, some of you are architects, whatever, when you build a building that's 50 stories tall, do not try to supply the water to every floor from the same pipe. Because at the highest floor, most of the energy will be tied up as gravitational. There will be no water pressure. And if you go down that 50 floors, the energy will have been released as gravitational, will now become pressure potential energy right before the faucet or the shower. And it will, in going out of the faucet and out of the nozzle in the shower, it will convert the pressure potential energy to kinetic, and it will come out at several hundred miles an hour and drill holes through the shower E. So the water supply systems in tall buildings are complicated. They control the pressure, if not floor by floor, but approximately. Similarly, if they want to fight a fire high in a tall building, getting the water up there involves adding a lot of gravitational potential energy to it. They either need wampum pumps or they want the water up there to begin with. So a lot of tall buildings deliberately store water way up high where it's chock full of energy in order to fight fires. And actually, when you pull a fire alarm, the first thing the equipment in the building does is it kicks into high gear, sending water up to store the energy in case they want to use it for a fire. So, little stories of the infrastructure of buildings. Actually, same with towns, hilly towns. You know, in the Midwest, where everything's essentially at the same level, the whole city's at the same level, delivering water is simple. But if you go into hilly cities, they got to deal with this too. So it's water delivery in a city is not as trivial as you might imagine. Okay, another important situation where water can convert energy from one form to the other and do interesting things is what's known as a siphon. And it's always hard to get this to explain this. So I'll give it my best shot. You got a tub of water there, and you want to drain it. For example, the pool water has gotten and you want to get it out of there. How are you going to do that if you can get it in there and bail it bucket by bucket? But if the pool's on a hill, it's already chock full of energy. You can use the energy that's in the water to propel itself to a lower location. So this container is certainly higher than this container. The water up here is higher than it is there. It's got enough energy to get there. Can I get it to use that energy strategically to do that? And what I'll start it and then I'll talk about it. So I'm just connecting the water in the aquarium with a pipe full of water to this container, whatever it is. And you'll notice the water is actually flowing, and there's no pump here. How is that happening? And this will eventually, eventually this will stop, but I can drain the aquarium the whole way eventually by going down into the sink. Here's what's happening. The water is starting at this level with that much gravitational potential energy. It is rising up to this height, where it's got more gravitational potential energy. And you might think, well, where did it get the energy from? It used its pressure potential energy. What pressure potential energy? It's basically the atmospheric pressure. Because this pipe is protected from the surroundings, it's again like that building. The roof is supporting the column of air. The pressure inside the pipe can be anything it wants, and it's less than atmospheric pressure. So there's a partial vacuum inside this pipe at this height. And you can think of it as like a straw, sucking the water out of the aquarium up to the top. And then it descends through the other part of the pipe, and as it descends, it's turning gravitational potential energy into pressure potential energy. It's coming back to atmospheric. In fact, it gets above atmospheric potentially, and I'm about to overflow this guy. So let me shift this over. I want to send it down the sink. Okay. All right. It's roaring away down here into the sink. I don't know if you can. I have to. You definitely get wet. I have to be careful to keep this part below the water level in the aquarium, otherwise the water will reverse and go back. It's trying to get rid of potential energy again. It's the same old story. Potential energy is stuff acts to get rid of it. So a siphon is a great way of emptying containers that are high. As long as you can have the outlet below the entrance, the water will work its way over. You can think of it as the weight of the water descending through the falling arm, creating a partial vacuum at the top that then sucks the water up. It's the same physics, just said differently. And siphons, along with being convenient for draining big things of water, for example, and conceivably stealing gasoline from your neighbor, they're also part of almost every toilet. So some of the toilets, institutional toilets that have the high pressure when you flush them, no, that's a different story. But the toilets that have a tank, when you do the handle and it flushes, you are filling a bowl of water that then has a pipe that goes up out of sight. You can't see this anymore. If you look in the bowl, all you see is the starting container of water. And hidden from view is a rise to a top and then a descent. And you can sometimes see that on the side of the toilet. If you go and people will think you're very strange. They'll think you're a physicist. Okay, and you'll be there looking at the side. You'll see that up and over. And what happens is when you flush the toilet, the water goes up and over just by virtue of just pouring into this container, and it's trying to spread out, seek its level, and it fills the up and over, and then the weight of that descending column of water in the exit pipe begins to create a partial vacuum at the top of the siphon, and it sucks the whole bowl empty. So now you've got something to pay attention to other than your cell phone or fishing it out. All right, so that's the story of siphon. Any other of these gadgets I want to do? Okay, no. So let me then turn away from water distribution and shift to garden watering. What's the difference? With water distribution, I was telling about water not moving very much and just experiencing pressure imbalances and how that affects things. And also water moving, but in an idealized situation, like steady state flow, forgetting viscosity as though it doesn't exist, which it does, and finally, assuming the water flows smoothly, which it doesn't always do. You've seen white water or splashing water around. That's a different kind of flow, and life is more complicated there because now you've got some of the energy, for example, will end up not as pressure potential energy, kinetic energy, or gravitational. It'll end up as thermal energy. So, I can ask you this question here, and then let's try this guy. Do I have it there? I do have it there, okay. You've all seen this or done this yourself, that if you've got an open hose and the water is just coming out gently, and you put your thumb over the hose, suddenly it starts spraying like crazy. Right? You've done this to annoy your siblings. Psst, gotcha, ha! All right? In which of those two circumstances, thumb or no thumb, is more water coming out of the hose? You okay with the question? I have it going? I do have it going, okay. Three, two, one. All right. What were the answers? D is not the right. No, what's it? What happened? D is definitely not the right answer. Okay. When more is coming out when the hose is uncovered. Yeah, I can plan ahead. Yes. What's your that's right. It sure seems when you put your thumb on, it's coming out really fast, but it's less water. And I'll give you a preview of why that's the case. And that is, when you leave the hose uncovered, the water is moving essentially as fast as the pressure imbalance can make it move through the hose. It is not moving perfectly. It's not, water has inertia, and in the best of all possible worlds, it would just coast. But in reality, it's also got viscosity. It's got the syrupiness, this friction-like stuff, and it rubs. And so it doesn't coast well. It slows to a stop in a long hose if you don't keep pushing it. And so if you get the water moving very fast, it rubs especially strongly and wastes a lot of its energy as thermal energy. And it comes out traveling slowly. It comes out of the hose with very little gravitational because it's down low. It's got very little pressure potential because it's at atmospheric pressure, and it's got very little kinetic because it's not moving very fast. Where did all its energy go? Thermal. It's hotter than it was way back at the water company. If you slow the water down by pinching it off with your thumb on the hose, it doesn't rub as much. Not as much water is moving. It's going slower. And it's moseying through the hose, keeping its energy intact, and its energy per drop, per portion. And it shows up at your thumb still full of energy in the form of pressure potential energy. And as it goes through that last little bit, the nozzle, it speeds up, turns its pressure, potential energy into kinetic, and comes out going like crazy. But it's the act of slowing the water down that allows it to hold on to its ordered energy better. All right? What I wanted to do, sort of as we get here to the end, another aspect of fluids is not only do they sort of move through our solid systems like plumbing or trap it in balloons and stuff like that, but it's got a life of its own. Fluids are stuff. They're really stuff, just as we are. I got a smoke generator, but it's misbehaving. It's a big mess. But here's the idea. There are toys that do this. It's called a vortex cannon. It blows smoke rings. Or with no smoke, you see no ring, but I can shoot them at you guys. So I know I got Michael's hair. There. I'll get Isabel. If I can get this thing to spit out some smoke, it's got a warm-up cycle, and it just goes bananas, and it was choking me earlier today. You can see these things move through the air. They're rings, and they crawl through the air. The inside goes forward, the outside goes back, and they crawl along. And technology that doesn't function. And when they hit something, you can feel them hit. It's more fun when I can aim better. You've been shot. Oh no, there was a mass shooting. And come on, guy. All right. Anyhow, the point of this is that fluids really do, lots of things happen within the fluids with no solids or liquids around. Well, yeah, no solids around at least. And we're going to start looking at the action of the fluid within the fluid. That it interacts with itself and with other fluids. And lots of interesting things happen there. And one of these days we'll get a viable smoke machine back. All right, see you on Monday.